Yes,
Were you
sir.
surprised when you saw what George Karl wrote about you?
Absolutely. I've been home minding my business. I've been enjoying retirement, so I haven't thought about George. I haven't thought about anything relating to Denver. So very much surprised.
And how did they hit you when you first saw them on your phone, right?
Yeah, I was getting ready to take my baby to Disneyland for her second birthday. I'm at the gas pump. I get a text message of what George was saying, a little snippet from his book. And they caught me off guard. Caught me off guard. Last thing I expected to see first thing in the morning, but here we are.
Did you tweet immediately, or you gave yourself a little time to gather yourself?
Had an hour and a half drive to go down to Disney, so had time to gather my thoughts because it just can't fly off the handle. People call it a rant, but it was well thought out. I'm not an English teacher. A few grammar errors, no commas, parentheses, whatever you want to call it. I don't care. But yeah, I had time to gather my thoughts, man. And
so what did you think your relationship was with George Karl when you played for him?
There wasn't one. We was player coach. It was player coach. That's all it was. There was no relationship outside of basketball. He didn't try to build one, and I didn't try to pursue one.
Was he difficult to play for or to deal with?
George is not a people person. George used to walk through the locker room and not speak to anyone. No players sitting in the locker room. We all at our lockers, and I don't know no coach that would do that. We all in this together. So you come through and not speak to anyone, that's just it's egotistical. That's arrogant. I don't know nobody walk in a room and not acknowledge anyone.
Right.
Who does that?
When you say it's hard to find a coach that's been in the business as long as George Karl has, and there has not been any players come to his defense. What do you think that says about him?
The proof is in the pudding. The proof is there. It's how you treat people and how you deal with people and how people perceive you. Like I said, he's been in the NBA for a long time. He has a lot of wins. He's been blessed to have great talent.
Right.
But it doesn't make you a good person or a good coach.
And that's what's so puzzling to me, guys, is that because he coached for so long, because he's accumulated so many wins, how can you be so successful? Because at the end of the day, coaching is about building relationships. How could he be so successful with the type of relationships that he seems to have had with his players?
I have no idea. He must interview well. He knows he knows X's and O's. I'm not taking the fact that he knows basketball.
Right.
Like he knows the game of basketball on one end. He knows offensive basketball. He's a good X's and O's guy when it comes to that part. But the total game of basketball, you have to cover all aspects of the game to be a good coach, in my opinion.
Right.
That's defense, that's special situations, that's time, score, all of that, out of bounds plays, all you have to cover all that. And we never did that. I don't know if it just started when we got to Denver or beforehand. That was the basketball part of it.
Right.
But then how you treat people is something totally different.
Right.
You name your dog Rookie because you don't like rookies. You treat rookies a certain way. Except if you went to Carolina. So it's things like that.
Because George played in Carolina.
Yeah, and then he thinks Dean Smith belongs on Mount Rushmore. You know what I'm saying? He's a great coach. I'm not taking nothing for Dean Smith, but when you're in the NBA, we don't want to keep hearing about what Dean Smith did.
So did any players ever confront him, ever challenge him on some of the things that he was doing?
Besides myself? Yeah, he had his run-ins with players over the years. Guys did dislike the way things were being done on the court, but a lot of guys wouldn't say it to him or to anyone, but I'm not that person.
Right.
If there's a problem in the locker room, if there's a problem on the court, I'm the one to voice it.
Right.
Because I can't sit back and watch something not right. And me not speak up. And maybe that was some fault in me because I'm always looking out for other guys.
Right.
So sometimes it come across as, oh, here Kenyon go again.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But that's just who I am. Like if they mistreating you, I'm gonna speak up for you. Not only myself, I'm gonna speak up for everyone in the room.
Right.
So sometimes they came across as me being hot-headed or me not being coachable, whatever. It was none of that. I never had any issues about coaching anything until George came. You ask anybody I played for beforehand, very coachable, very likable, knows the game well. You know, all this stuff comes about when he comes.
Right.
You know, none of this stuff surfaced before George came.
I just had a problem with what he said about the lack of fathers
Yeah.
not being in your life, because that's lazy. That's very stereotypical, because there are a lot of people that are not successful that didn't have fathers. There are a lot of people that's successful that had fathers. And for him to say that's the reason, and that's you don't know.
Yeah.
And so I just thought it was really lazy and stereotypical of him.
It was.
And that's the problem. That I don't know George Karl. I was in Denver when he was coaching some, but I don't know him.
Yeah.
But I thought that was wrong for him to say what he said.
And for me, it's, like I said, it's very personal because in my opinion, well, not in my opinion, it's what it is. Like, you taking a shot at my mom.
Right.
Like, you taking a shot at the way she raised me.
Correct.
And other single mothers out there, you taking a shot at them. Not only me and Mello,
Right.
but other single mothers I turned out well. My mother was my mother and my father. You know, so for you to say that, like, you disrespecting her. So I'm here to stand up for her.
Right.
You know, it ain't like, I'm gonna be fine, but you don't say that I was fathered and that's why I act like this and making this money and AAU babies. Like, no, I know, I'm none of that. I'm a grown man and I address situations as they are. So I'm here to defend my mother in that aspect.
And you should have been commended because you weren't in a two-parent household. For you to go off to college, become very, very successful. There are a lot of athletes that don't have two-parent homes that go off and be successful. And I want to preface this. I don't want to insinuate that the only way you can be successful if you don't have a father or a mother in your life is to be through sports. But it doesn't matter what you become as long as you become successful. You can be a doctor, a lawyer, as long as you have gainful employment and you come from where you came from, because you're telling the story where you came from, Dallas, and you're telling, like, man, I had to get out of Dallas because I know me, I know my friends, I just needed to move away from that. He was telling me off camera, Skip, that 2 weeks after graduating high school, he was in Cincinnati. So for him to understand where he wanted to be and to where he was and where he needed to get, you should be commended for that. Guys should be commended from coming out of their environment, although they don't have two-parent households. Not looked down upon.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with it 1,000%. And that's like, they're just taking shots, man, at people. And like I said before, I haven't thought about George Karl. George Karl is not a part of my everyday life.
Right.
You know, I have children to raise. I have responsibilities going on that don't require the NBA or George Karl.
Right.
You know, but and for him to go out and attack Melo in the way he did, and myself and JR. So you tell me what it is. He spoke on me and Melo not having fathers growing up. In the same breath, you go say JR's fathers, they're too much. Which one is it?
Yeah.
Do you want us to have a father? Do you not want us to? Like, which one is it?
Right.
Like, so you can't, I don't get it. You know?
I do get George. I know George. I agree with you. He does know basketball on that one end. Didn't really care about the other end because there's no glamour on the defensive end. George is as big a diva as anybody who was in your locker room or anybody else's locker room. To me, George wanted to be the star of the show. He ultimately wanted the media to see him as the reason that you made it to the conference final or wherever you got. And that's just George, and that was his downfall in your league, because the reason Popovich is so successful is he just takes a complete backseat. In fact, he shuns the interviews, like he makes it a thing where, leave me alone, get out of my face with that. And the players appreciate that because they know he wants them to have the glory in the end. He doesn't really care about the glory. He's going to get it anyway. George would have gotten it if he'd won a championship.
Right.
And he did get to one final, as you know, Seattle, and they lost to Jordan. No shame in that. But George can coach a little bit, in his own way. But to me, his downfall was his own ego. It's why he would walk to your locker room. You guys are just, you're cogs in my system here.
Basically. And it's like, it was like, if we won, it was because of him. And if we lost, it was because of us.
That's right.
Like really? Like, we're in this together. Like we all win together and we lose together. Like, and that's the way it felt at times. Just being there, being around him. And I played, like I'm saying, when Melo left and got traded to New York, I was still there. So
you had to deal with all that by yourself.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So, our relationship at that point, it was strained. Like, there was no coming back from it. We had our words and our things over the years, but one thing I did every day, every time I put that uniform on, I showed up and I played. Nobody could question that. I had 2 microfracture surgeries playing in Denver. Had my patella repaired playing in Denver. I didn't do that sitting at home.
Right.
I did that playing basketball for the Denver Nuggets.
Right.
You know, so for him to go out and have this to say, like now, like just to sell a book, like you said, he's in it for the attention. You know, and that's obvious. Man,
Did you ever try to sit with him and work it out face to face? Or was that just
No, like
not allowed?
no, there were things going on like just early on. Like he would use me because he knew I could take it. Use me as a scapegoat. He wanted to speak to other guys in the locker room, and he knew he couldn't. So he was, Kenyon, you need to do this, you need to do that in order to talk to other guys. So I accepted it up to a certain point. And then something happened one day, and I went in his office and told him, "I'm done being your scapegoat, this, that, and the third." So then we played in the Clippers in the playoffs. We had a little altercation or whatnot in the locker room. I was suspended. So after that, me and him sat down and had a conversation. I didn't apologize for what I said. Maybe the timing of it was bad, but I meant everything I said. And I told him, "Listen, you coach your team. I show up and I do my job. You don't say nothing to me out of line. I don't say nothing to you, and we can."
Coexist like that.
And that's what it was. You know,
And he responded with what?
there was nothing to respond with. He accepted it, and we moved on. You know, because I didn't want to be there after the thing with the Clippers, but I didn't have a choice. I was in the contract. So I'm going to show up, I'm going to do my job. You know, so I showed up in training camp ready to go.
By the way, did you communicate with Melo at all about what George wrote about him?
No. I saw Melo's interview, but Melo's still playing. So Melo has to be politically correct right now. He can't do what I'm doing right now. So, and I understand it. And I understand JR's position. I'm not playing anymore. You're not finna attack me, my family, and no, I'm not gonna sit back and accept it from somebody like George. Not at all.
Yeah.